Hello there, people, and welcome back to the garage. And we're back fiddling with the ST1300. This time around, wheels and front suspension. So I'm gonna try to walk you through what I'm doing, and we'll see how it goes. So the first thing, when it comes to taking out the front suspension, one thing I did, I don't know if it's strictly necessary, but when taking things apart, I like marking things. So I put some red tape on my right hand handlebar, and I did the same for the right fork. And especially the fork on the right side has been leaking. There's a leaky seal here. This one was not leaking, but I'm going to take them apart, and I mean a part completely. And I have let's see. I need a bigger garage. I have bought some various parts, some seals, wheel bearings. I bought some various things that hopefully all fit into here. Well, that remains to be seen. Ooh, yes. And also, I've put on the Michelin Road 6 front and rear. So that's going to be interesting to try out. What else? Well, first, let's start with the whole disassembly bit. And might as well start in the rear. So the rear wheel, what you need to do, in case you don't know, is you need to remove the brake caliper bracket, because that's going to get in the way, because the rear wheel is fitted into there with that. So the wheel needs to come over and out, right? But as soon as you remove the caliper and the bracket, it has enough room to slide this way, and then it just comes straight out. And there's just a hole for the bolt. No adjustment, nothing, just a bolt. And the bolt, unless I gave it away, it should be here somewhere. This one. So this is the bolt. This is what it looks like on the right hand side, and then there's a nut on the left hand side, and then you have this thing that fits onto there. These two are on the front wheel. So that's the rear. The front is a bit more finicky. You need to basically, I know it's dark, you need to take this whole thing off. And I don't know what it's like on your bike, but on my bike, all the sizes of bolts that they could find that could fit, they used. So some of it is 8mm heads, some of it is 10. It's there wasn't really a system to it, but you'll get it. And then you have two, I don't know if you can see, oh, maybe. You have one clamp at the bottom, with 2 bolts, 14 mil, and then you have one up here, which is also 14 mil. And if you have risers on, which I do, you have to remove that as well, which is this thing, which is held on like so, with a bolt and a nut. Right, so that's you all caught up, I think. So what I've done, just to remove everything and keep the bike stable, I hung it in these things, which are aftermarket protection, which are really solid. So I hung it with those, which means the rear is not going anywhere, and I put it on the bike lift there. And this 2x4 is just in case the hydraulics sag. It'll squeeze on the 2x4 and it's never going to fall all the way down. So that is all I've been doing. So next thing, take one of these things apart and see what we find. Ooh, one thing. This is crucially important. So when you start doing this, to remove the front suspension, you have these 2 caps on the top right here. Now that is a 17 mil Allen head, so you need, where did I put it? Oh, I have it somewhere. I have it here somewhere. There we go. So I bought one of these, and I used it was really on there, so it took a lot of force, which means you need to loosen these. Don't remove them, but loosen them before you take them off the bike. Otherwise you're gonna have to cramp this into a vise or something, and you might damage things. Don't do that. While they're still on the bike, loosen these. All right, so I'm going to start taking it apart and learn as I go. And another little tip, so when you put this in a vise, which I strongly suggest that you do, I found some rubber protection, just so that you don't have metal on metal, because you're going to scuff this up. Now mine are quite, there's a lot of surface rust on there. I'm going to see if I can find a way to sort that out once I get it apart. And this thing is spring loaded. There's a spring. This is already under tension, so this cap is going to come flying. So keep some downwards pressure on that while you're screwing it. But now that I've loosened it, it's moving. So yeah, downward pressure and some protection. All right, moving on. Now, how much downward pressure, I hear you ask, on this cap? Well, not a lot. And then under there, I don't know if you can tell, you have, there you go, a 14 mil under there. So you can hold that and uncap that. And then to get the insides of this thing out, you need to remove that fastener in there, because otherwise it's not coming out. And that's a 6 mil, I believe. Yep, that's a 6. And once you've done that, out comes this beauty. So I haven't clamped it very hard, just enough to hold it vertical to show you what this looks like. You have a small spring here, the main spring there, and on top you have a spacer and a washer. That's what comes out. Now, in order to get all the oil out of this thing, what I did was I turned it upside down and I worked this in and out and let the oil run out of here until I now have basically just air in there. And then moving on to the shock itself, you need to remove the dust cover, which is just a hammer and a flathead screwdriver, and make note of that little tap there, which fits into there. All right, and then it's removing this piece so that we can get to the bushings. And removing that was essentially just a flathead screwdriver up underneath there and a couple of taps and it came out. So there you go. Moving on. And then to remove the clip in there, let's see if I can show you that one-handed. I'm trying to look at both what I'm doing and the phone, but I don't know if you can tell, but it's hard to see what that actually looks like. But there's an opening. This is actually difficult to do when you're not exactly looking at what you're doing. But that's essentially how that comes out. Just like that. And that is what it looks like. And once you got it back in the vise, it's essentially a question of showing controlled fury. There we go. And there it is. Well, that was easy. Now, I am seeing some interesting wear on here. So we have an oil seal like that. And we have those. And here's the upper bushing. And if you look at it, what does that say? CB90, is that what it says? I think so. But if you look at it, there's some serious wear on that. Serious wear. That looks like a copper layer. But if you move down to the lower one, this looks significantly better. Now this is also loose and it's split. that it's not nearly as worn as that. But it is worn. I'll show you what the new one looks like. Right, so after some closer inspection, the bottom one is essentially worn out as well. It's completely smooth here. It has some texture here and there, and it's worn essentially through. So here's the new one. In comparison, and the upper one massive difference. Sweet. And to remove that lower bushing is essentially just prying the split apart with a flathead screwdriver and pulling it off. The other, this is the lower, did I say upper? Lower. The upper and the oil seal and all that just comes off the other way. But this one is seated into a groove, so you actually need to pry it apart and pull it off. And then once you've taken everything off, it's essentially just a question of cleaning everything up, putting the new pieces on, put it back together, and you're off for the races. One little tip when you go to put these things back on, the new pieces, take your fork oil and lube everything up as you're putting it on. This is metal on metal. Don't forget that. Even though it's meant to be metal on metal, it's not meant to be dry metal on dry metal. So lube everything up and then slide this on and you're good to go. So a couple of tips when it comes to cleaning the lower section, outside and inside, especially inside. On the outside you can use essentially whatever you want. However, what I suggest is getting, focus, damn it, some wire brushes with a variety of metals in the brush itself. Remember, as I've mentioned before, a wire brush, for an example, is metal on metal. So you don't want this metal, the one you're cleaning, to be the softer one. You want the metal in the wire brush to be the softer one so that the wire brush looses to this material. Now, that's the first thing. Second thing, cleaning on the inside. I made myself a torch looking thing with a cloth on the end for, I think it's for polishing. It doesn't leave any fabric behind. And the most important thing on the inside of things like this, don't use solvents. Don't. Just don't. So what I did was I basically just ran this in and out and twisted it around dry, right, all the way to the bottom, and then out, like so. Once I'd done that a couple of times and got it relatively clean, I soaked this in shock oil, the same oil that's going in here, and I used that to clean it, so that you don't leave residue of like solvents, cleaning fluids that might attack, for an example, your oil seal, like the rubber in the oil seal, or the surface of the bushings, Don't put anything in here that isn't supposed to be there. So use shock oil. You just take your time. And then we're almost ready to put the pieces back together. And what I've done is I've tried at least to get all the rust spots off. Yeah. It's a heck of a lot better than it was. So what I essentially did was I cut a strip of 600 grit sandpaper, wrapped it around, and around you went. Not up and down. You don't want scuff marks up and down on anything that goes that way. It's just a rule of thumb. So that way. It's a forearm workout, but I believe in you. Oh, and before we put these two things back together again, remember, clean the inside of this as well. You're not going to be able to see. No, you're not. And the same thing as before. Stay there. There you go. And what I did this time, I made myself a torch-looking thing at the end of a broom handle. And that's what it looks like. Yuck. So I ran it in one time, thoroughly dry. And then I removed that paper, wrapped it again, soaked it in shock oil, and clean it that way. Now, those two things are becoming one. Once again. So now that we're putting things back together again, these bushings are split, so just force a habit. Put things that are split so that you have one split on either side, so that they are opposite of each other. It's just a rule of thumb. I don't know if it matters. It's just the way my brain works. And then, when you're putting it back together, just make sure that everything is clean. And you just slide it in, like so. And then you have this upper bushing that needs to go in there. Now, just don't do stupid shit. Don't just drive it in there, or don't even try to just drive it in there with a hammer and a screwdriver. I don't care who told you to do that. So you already have this washer that fits on there. Now you can use that on top. And let's see, screwdriver. I had a screwdriver. Yeah, let's use this. And just place it on there. And gently tap it in there. Right? With a rubber mallet or something that doesn't give you tons of force. Just take it slow, be gentle, till you feel that it's going in there. Alternatively, if you want to be, I don't know, careful all of a sudden for some reason, you could make yourself a little spacer tool. I made this out of, this is just PVC pipe or polyethylene, and it just, it's 50 mil outside. Not exactly sure what the inner diameter is, but the point is, it fits on there. So to drive that, to just get it seated, let's say, all I essentially did was just grab this and firmly just whack it in there. That's all I did. Whack and whack and whack. And that's going in there. I need to sort my vise out. Alright, now that, I don't know if you can see, it's focusing on the wrong thing, but that is even Steven. It's in there. So now, oil seal. Let's slide that on there. In there you go. On with my little spacer tool. And squeeze. There you go. I'm going to give it a couple of love taps just to make sure that it's completely seated in the bottom there, because there is a groove in there. Well, it doesn't look too bad. There's a groove in there for the ring. Nope, we need to go deeper than that to fit this thing, remember? Yeah, that needs to go deeper. All right, I'll keep working it. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget that washer, like I just did. Washer, then oil seal. All right. And then, as gently as you can, you work that oil seal in there until you can clearly see that groove. So that's where the ring goes. And then on goes the dust seal. And again, just take things slow. Make sure it's even on there. Where's my, there we go, my little persuader. Yeah, it's not straight on there. Oh, there you go. All right. So I'm essentially just squeezing it in using my hand, because I can much easier feel if I have uneven resistance, as long as I can use my hands. But that is going in there straight. So now I'm just gonna keep working it until it's even on there and no gaps. That looks, there's a gap there. All right, so I'm going to just give that a few love taps and we're good to go. And when I say love taps, I mean rubber on rubber. And now for the last piece, this thing. Now I don't know if it was a good idea to do this last. I don't know, because this sort of covers a bit. There's a lip there, and this has a knob, remember? So that goes into that. I wonder, can I trick you past there? I think I can. I think I can without, and again, just working it with my hands, because I have a better feel with that than any tools. I'm just working it down. All right. And then working it on there. And there we go. All right. Now we just clean this up and these two pieces are back together. Now for the inner workings. So then you just slide that inner piece back in there, put the bolt back in the bottom. If your kit, your repair kit, comes with a new washer, a little copper washer for that bolt, just replace it. And that goes back in there. One little tip, put a clamp or something on that, because that goes in there and it disappears and it might be a pain in the neck to get back out. Ask me how I know. Right, so now that we have the things back together again, you just pour your fork oil in there, and then you just work this up and down. It's going to go really light up and down as long as there's air in here, and then it's suddenly going to go really, really heavy. So in order for you to just make this easier on you, you can screw this this top cap back on, and then you just work that up and down until there's no more air. And you can hear down here, you can hear it if you have air bubbles. You can hear it. You can hear the air bubbles work their way past the shims that are down here now. So now that that is done, as far as level is concerned, we're looking at, let's see. Okay. We're looking at 62 millimeters. So 62 is all the way down there. That's where the oil level is supposed to be, according to the Heinz Bible. So yeah, let's make that happen, and yeah, screw the cap back on. Well, actually, not just screw the cap back on. We need to put the spring in, and the spacer, or the spring, washer, and then spacer, and then we can put the cap back on and put it back together, fit it on the bike, and we're good to go. Now, 62 millimeters. From where, I hear you wonder? Well, top or bottom? Seat it all the way to the bottom, all the way down, and pull the inner rod all the way up, and then you measure. So we are at, so that's 6. That should be nothing on there yet. I'm touching it. That's pretty much perfect. All right. So the outer all the way down, inner all the way up, measure 6.2. And now that we've done that, we can remove this upper cap. Come on. A lot of threads on that. There we go. Take that off. Make sure that's all the way down. Stay. And then we take our spring and slide it in there. Then we have our washer. Slip that in there. Into the oil it goes. And then in comes the spacer. And then we put the top cap back on, holding that knot. Just the reverse of what we did when we took it apart. And then we just screw it in there. Right, so that is the job done. So what have we done? We have taken the front fork completely apart. We have drained it for the old oil, cleaned it, put new oil in. We changed the top and bottom bushing in here, the oil seal, and the dust seal. I replaced the O-ring on this top nut. And I cleaned this for rust spots, so it's looking nice now. There are some, as you can see, some spots, but not enough to damage any seals or anything like that. Especially there's nothing down here. This is the important. Ooh. There are some, but I can't feel it. But with the nail I can feel it. Alright, I might give that another couple of swirls. Anyway, so that's the job done. So in order to do this job, what do you need? Well, you first need to take this damn thing off and actually start the job. And trust me, anyone can do this. This was ridiculously simple. We didn't touch anything in that inner rod. I just left that as it was. I didn't remove anything in there. That's the difficult part, and that's where you really need to be careful. So just changing the oil, changing the bushings, half an hour, even if you've never done it before. So what do you need as far as things are concerned? Well, you're going to need fork oil, right? So that's 10 weight. That's what I've used. That's what the book says as well. You're going to need some masking tape and polishing paper, something that doesn't leave paper residue. Rubber mallet. Yeah, why don't you stay on the floor? This hammer, just in case I needed a bit more force. 17 mil Allen key. And 6 mil Allen key. Some wire brushes, flat screwdrivers, something to measure with, 14 mil, a clamp, something to pry O-rings and stuff with, 50 millimeter or something that fits on the outside of that. So this is just a 50 mil. Well, it's polypropylene actually, but PVC pipe, something like that. I used 600 grit sandpaper to get this done. And you need a repair kit, obviously. But aside from that, that's essentially all you need. You don't need any specialized tools to fiddle around with these things. All I used was this and a rubber mallet. And time to be careful. And that is the job done. And this goes back into the bike. So I'm guessing even if you've never done it before, you've never taken one of these things apart, you're afraid of it, don't be. There's nothing to be afraid of. You've seen me take it apart, put it back together. You've seen all the parts. I told you what I did. And I've never taken one of these apart before, so this was my very first time. The other one is right here. I haven't touched it yet. So this is my very first in my life. And it took me, well, if I remove the time that it took me to film everything and all of that, I'm guessing about an hour. And I took it slow just to make sure that I didn't make any stupid mistakes and everything went back together the way I took it apart and so on and so forth. So, that's the job. Now they go back into the bike. Well, first I need to repeat the process on the second one, and this goes back into the bike. Alright, small correction. I said roughly half an hour. I did the second one and timed it. So I just ran through the same procedure again, and it took me pretty much exactly 1 hour. So there you go. 1 hour.